I'm going to be brief. I know you've all been patient. You want to hear your names read and get on with it. But I just want to walk you back from what I've learned from you, the amazing class of 2018. Mike Brown, it was early August 2014. You were all getting ready to come here to start school. A 28-year-old white police officer encountered Mike Brown. 12 bullets were fired. Mike Brown was 18, the same age many of you were at the time. Ferguson. In class, we watched the tweets. We followed the rage unfold in real time. And that night, Ferguson became a landmark, a code word, a warning. February 14th this year, a high school in Florida, 17 killed, another 17 wounded. Parkland, another landmark, code word, warning. These are the bookends of your college career. And right in between, November 6th, 2016, the day that everything changed. It's been warp speed. Your years in college and your generation has moved as fast as any across the landscape of turmoil in American history. So too have the movements of protest. Black Lives Matter, the Women's March, Me Too, Never Again. And here too, at the New School, even in recent days, a sit-in for cafeteria workers, a strike for student workers. We tell ourselves stories in order to live. Joan Didion. At Lang, we like St. Joan. At one point, I even counted 4 different classes reading Joan at the same time. Stories. There can be no collective memory without them. Words, images, and yes, Snapchat. It wasn't so long ago, in the wake of Occupy Wall Street, that many railed against the 1%, and in particular at Goldman Sachs, that great vampire squid wrapped around the face of humanity, as one writer in Rolling Stone cried. But the man running against Hillary also cried. And when he won by 78,000 votes in 3 states, he put the men of Goldman Sachs right back at the levers of financial power in government. What changed? In the Great Depression, at least 7 million Americans lost their homes, and no banker went to jail. How did the memories vanish so fast? The designers call it the attention economy, and I've learned its costs. When everything is everywhere, a click, a tap, a swipe away, you face an attention funnel. The designers tell us, only feed your audience one idea at a time. But is that right? Think on it. The sands shift faster and faster, falling further and further from our collective memory. November 7th, 2016, the morning after. Some suggested cancel classes. We didn't, and you came. None of you missed it that day. Many of you had seen the faces on the subway, tears and disbelief. It was, some said, like a second surprise attack. And in the classroom, the shock only grew. Around the table, more tears, even among the few of you, and yes, you do exist, who supported the triumphant nominee. But something happened. You began to report, and you began to tell the story. How did it happen? How did it affect us, our community? Some of you spoke of clergy, a minister in Bed-Stuy who listened when you asked, "Where is God?" And of family, a stepfather who texted in the middle of the night, "It's going to be all right." And yes, you discovered among your family and your Facebook those who voted against your dreams. But taken together, your stories told another surprise. You would not meet shock with despair, but action. Before, I wasn't sure I wanted to do journalism, one of you said. Today, I know. I want to tell stories. I want to tell true stories. You did not quit. You doubled down. About a year later, we had a disruption, a week of curriculum disruptions, in advance of the 400th anniversary of the first Africans brought to Jamestown. 400 years of inequality. The response was overwhelming. A pressure valve burst. One of your professors offered a speech from 1851, Sojourner Truth's Ain't I a Woman? It's a stirring text. It speaks both to the injustices of slavery and of sexism. The professor made the point that the 15th Amendment gave black men the vote in 1870. But it was another 50 years until the 19th Amendment gave black women and all women that same right. These two moments, the day after the election, the week of the disruption, they stay with me. I felt then, as I do now, proud to be part of an institution and a community that embraces our differences and seeks to enrich our common humanity. Parkland, a landmark, code word, warning. But for what? This time, something's different. This time, our children are calling us to account. Barack Obama's words a few weeks ago. It isn't the first time. The Children's March, April 1963. You all know Martin Luther King's letter from a Birmingham jail. King wrote on scraps of paper, the margins of newspaper, the edges of letters, whatever he could get smuggled into solitary. It's one of the strongest essays on social justice ever written. But King is actually uncertain. He's at a low point in the struggle. He writes, quote, of the disappointment with the white moderate. He'd spent months preparing for those marches in Alabama, but they'd fizzled. Nothing went according to plan until the children marched. Taylor Branch, historian of the King years, calls it the tipping point in a tipping point year. You know the photographs, Bull Connor and his men, fire hoses, batons, dogs, loosed on the children. That was the spark, Branch says, the engine that got things going. Look up the Children's March. Learn that history. Tell their stories to tell your own. Today isn't really the finish line. It's the starting point. And you all know the goal, a life of learning. You know the rules, too. Some are easy. Never upgrade. Take more walks. Look up every word you don't know. Have a conversation with someone in their 90s. Take the bus to Rikers. Sit out on a fire escape with a friend until daybreak. Tell more jokes, even bad ones. And put Eugene Lang College on your resume and find someone here today who's going to write that first letter of recommendation and get her cell phone. But some of the rules are hard. Quit Instagram. Look into someone's eyes. Learn a second language. Listen to your passion. Know your biases. Find your focus. Read more books. Read more books. Make a buck. Money is always nice, but don't ever take a job just for the money. And please, I know it's hard, never ever take a job for no money. Pace yourself. One foot in front of another, the war photographer Chris Hondras told one of our classes. Fall down, stand up, Andre Lambertson, the filmmaker, said. Embrace change. One of the first great lessons of my adulthood, Jesmyn Ward wrote recently in a piece on Scott Fitzgerald, is that I change. As I grow, she wrote, my dreams change, as do my ideas about who I can be and what I want during the short time that I am alive. Lifelong learning. It is an art, and it may be the most powerful one. Parkland, Dreamers, Black Lives Matter, Me Too. Who gets the credit? I'd like to say it's the journalists. They won the Pulitzers, but it's not. It's you all. Each one of you will write the future, and it ain't gonna be easy. You inherit a world of contradiction, where people have become brands and news, including the reporting of life and mass death, products. Where in a city as grand as ours, homeless still fill the streets, and others buy $1,000 Christmas trees only to be abandoned on Christmas Eve. Where a movie with an all-African-American lead cast can take in $700 million and be all about power, and it's a fairy tale. Where public schools are segregated today as they were 50 years ago when Dr. King was shot. And where one morning at Lang recently, I stood in a room of newly admitted students, some 24 high schoolers, and when I asked them, how many of you know someone who's died of an overdose? Every single hand slowly went up. We tell ourselves stories in order to live. I like to think at Lang, we tell each other stories in order to change the world. Parkland, a warning. Change does come. A young woman with a shaved head and an infectious smile and a voice trembling with outrage gains more followers on Twitter than the NRA in a single week. Almost 1 million more. And in Florida, a Republican facing a tight race, a veteran who lost both his legs in Kandahar, Afghanistan, comes out against assault weapons. There is much work to do, and you will do it. But you've already done so much. You've already stood out here at Lang, on a stage, in a classroom, on a podcast, and yes, in sit-ins and walkouts. This generation, your generation, has taken on the big issues, the tough questions. And if you make us, your elders, uncomfortable, that's just how it should be. For we grown-ups in your midst, we have failed you. We've told you that the arc of history is long. We've told you that it bends towards justice. We've told you to practice patience. But you will not be patient. You want change, and you want it now. And we, your elders, will thank you. Thank you, and congratulations to each and one of you.